Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammy and Nathan Yeager.
Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Today we are talking all about skills and strengths. What we're exploring is how to identify yours and your partner's skills and strengths, what happens when a team lean into what they are really best at, and how to run a household and identify who is in charge of what. Now let's get into it.
Welcome to the Date Forever podcast, everyone. Today we have Jess Weiss. She is the managing consultant for Human Tribe, where she specialises in human performance. She helps people and businesses meet their highest potential with a focus on team cohesiveness and self-awareness. Human Tribe specialise in human performance in the workplace. They help organisations with anything from self-awareness coaching and management capability training to team cohesiveness and everything in between. Jess, we're so excited to have you.
Good morning. I'm excited to be here.
Do you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in the potential of people?
Yeah, so it's an interesting transition into it. So my background's actually in the fitness industry, so still along the people side. So I'm a personal trainer by trade, and I sort of just worked my way from personal trainer up to PT manager. So I was managing some other trainers across some multiple gyms, and what I really loved was working with the trainers, mentoring them, coaching them, helping them with any issues they had, team meetings, that kind of thing. And I felt like I went from being able to assist, if I had 10 clients, I was helping 10 people to helping, 8 trainers who were all helping 10 people. So I felt like I was playing a much more important role, and I just got really lucky. I met the right person and I was able to sort of transition into this. I found a really great mentor called Nick. And the rest is history. I've been working with Human Tribe for sort of 3.5, almost 4 years now. And I just love working with people, with organizations. I just want people to go to work and be happy and thriving.
Yeah, very cool. So can you tell us a little bit about the difference between what skills are and what strengths are?
Yeah, so in terms of strengths-based development, we talk about it more as a talent rather than a skill. And we sort of use the idea that it's talent times investment equals strength. So you take a natural talent, and it could be anything like playing basketball, or it could be math, or it could be, anything that you're naturally talented at. You times it by investment, which is that time you spend practicing, developing that knowledge or skills base. And that's when you get a strength. And in terms of strengths-based development, we define it as a naturally recurring pattern of thought, feeling, or behavior that can be productively applied. So talent times investment, and then the strength is something that you can sort of do to near perfect performance.
Very cool. And how would somebody go about identifying them if they're not sure what it is that they're, organically great at versus what was more a learned and refined skill? Like, how do you go about exploring that?
Yeah, so generally think about what really gives you energy. What do you get passionate about? What gives you energy? What do you really look forward to? Something that you're doing and you just really get in the zone. Versus maybe when we're not using a strength or a natural talent, those are the things that drain us more. So the things that you really want to procrastinate doing, the ones that you don't look forward to, they drain your energy, they sort of suck the life out of you. So like personal admin for me, all of that sort of stuff fits in that category.
It's horrible.
Yeah. Yes.
For me, it's vacuuming. That is the worst job.
Oh, really? I
hate it.
I'd be happy to take vacuum. Like if I had to lay out the chores of the house, I wouldn't mind vacuuming, throw some music in.
and that's Nathan, so we're lucky.
Yeah, I love it. I love seeing the progress of the task and just getting the result at the end. It's good.
Yeah, nice.
So I guess touching on that, couples are really like a tiny little team of two with big goals and visions. Like, how can they identify and then actually leverage each other's strengths to maximize that productivity and to get good results?
I guess what I'd say is quite often couples, they already know where each other's strengths lie. Sometimes we just don't take notice into it. So it might be about noticing what brings your partner joy, or notice what they get in the zone that you can call out to them and that they don't even hear that you're calling out to them. For some people, it might be, getting in the kitchen and cooking. For someone else, it might be something like reading a book. Someone might be like planning a holiday and getting into those dirty details. So in terms of it, I'd say get really curious about what your partner does and why they do it. You know, do they like to plan? Do they like to go with the flow? Do they process in their head, or do they need to talk it out? Like, I'm a talk it out kind of person. So if I need to there you go. So if I need to process something, I'll go to my partner and I'll just be like, hey, can we talk something out? And she can literally sit there and just not say a word. And I'll like have the conversation for both of us. And then at the end, I'm like, that was great. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me. And she's like, I didn't say anything.
I think Nath and your partner might have a few things in common.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But the thing is, she knows that about me, right? So if I'm really struggling with something, she'll now come up to me and go, let's talk it out. And she knows she'll ask me a couple of questions, and then she knows once I get talking that I'll get flowing. So that's something she's sort of noticed that in me, and it's something that, you know, if I'm struggling, she knows how to leverage that or really pull it out of me. But then on the flip side, also look at what really bugs your partner about you, or what bugs you about your partner. And if you use that also to understand them. So in the same way, look at what brings joy to them. Also look at what bugs you about them, and also understand they're not doing that just to bug you, but maybe they're just doing that because that's their pattern of thinking, and it's just different to your pattern of thinking.
So sometimes we can see, I guess, skills or traits or behaviors in our partner where things just sort of come naturally to them. Like, how do you, I guess, make that shift where it's like, hey, babe, I've had responsibility of this task. I really think you'd be better for doing it. How do you kind of have that conversation without being like, do you know what, you should wash the dishes all the time because you're better at it than me? Like, how, you know, there's a delicate balance.
Without just palming off responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't leave any marks on the dishes. You should definitely do them all the time.
I'm terrible at this.
Yeah. I think it's a really good question. I guess the first thing I'd say is open up the conversation, right? So sometimes what happens in a relationship is one person just takes a task and rolls with it. And sometimes it's because they just see that it needs to be done and they do it. Other times it's because their partner doesn't do it and they're like, fine, I guess I have to do it. I think what I'd say is, if you know that something really speaks to the strengths of the other person, and I'm not talking things like cleaning or scrubbing the toilet, because I can scrub the toilet and it can be really clean, but it doesn't mean I love doing it, right? It just means I love the outcome. But it might be something, for example, cooking. So one person just might be naturally better at cooking. So it kind of makes sense that that person does the cooking, but it's also not fair. They might not want to do it all the time, right? So it's just about opening up that conversation. And if you notice that your partner's got a strength in an area that they're not leveraging, then again, open up that conversation and see, you know, what you can do from there. But I don't think it's quite as simple as going, I'm not good at the dishes and you get them clean every time, so you should do it. Because there's got to be that balance of, if someone doesn't want to do it, just because they're good at it, doesn't mean that it should fall to them.
Yeah, there's this great quote from Elaine de Botton which talks about, you know, the romantic person sees marriage as this blissful kind of thing, you know, when in reality it's got the more similarities with running a small business.
Yeah.
Budget and hire and fire and schedule, and, you know, you've got all these moving parts. You know, sometimes in teams, like in the workplace, people have picked up tasks because someone went on holidays or someone resigned from a role and that person was never replaced with someone with the same skill set or capabilities. And we just kind of find ourselves doing these things that you're like, how did this even become my responsibility? You know, if you're looking to have one of those kind of conversations with your partner where you're like, I think we just need to do some sort of audit of who's doing what and how we're doing it. Is there like a good framework or something we can use to kind of have that conversation?
Yeah, it's a really tough one because I think there's a lot of variables that are involved. You know, is it something that you both don't want to do? Because that would be a really different conversation to something you don't want to do but your partner wants to do, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that it's all just about having that conversation. You know, an example that comes to mind was, you know, with my partner, we used to both do the shopping together and then both do the cleaning together. And then one day, I don't even know how it came out. I was like, oh, I don't want to do the cleaning. And she was like, I don't want to do the shopping. And we were like, oh, hang on a second. So then the thing became, I'd go do the shopping, she'd do the cleaning. So it doesn't mean that I'll never, pick up the vacuum if something needs to be cleaned, and it doesn't mean she'll never pop to the shops. But it kind of made us go, oh, okay, we haven't had this conversation before. We were both doing things that we didn't want to do as much. Neither of us, except especially, wanted to go shopping or do the cleaning. But it's kind of like, what's the lesser of two evils here? And just by having that conversation, we kind of went, oh, okay, this could work.
Yeah, and then rather than both of you spending 2 hours at the shops and then 2 hours at home cleaning, 4 hours total, you now have half that because you both,
Yeah, exactly.
So it's efficient as well.
Yeah.
So within teams, how do you identify skills or strengths gaps? And what can you do once you've, I guess, figured those out?
So generally, if there's a gap, it can be a couple of things. So if we're talking in the workplace, it could be that there's a gap in results. And that might be really simple to go, oh, okay, we realized that no one was doing, this. And for that reason, we've now fallen short in this area. And then it's like a review of, okay, well, who should this be sitting with, or who wants to be doing this? So there's those conversations that happen, or it could be a mindset that sways a team in a certain way. So give you a perfect example for that. We were working with an exco of a large global institution, and they were extremely, extremely capable team. There was about 11 or 12 of them on the team. And so they did an actual strengths assessment. But what they found is that none of them had a talent called positivity. And what that meant was they always thought on the really negative side of things. Now, it's not to say that they should go and hire someone who's really high positivity just to balance it out. But what it allowed them to do is go, okay, we've got a gap here. We probably think a little bit more on the negative side. So now when they're having a discussion about something, they'll actually stop and go, okay, hang on a second. Are we being too negative here? Do we have to flip it and think on the more optimistic side? So it can kind of happen in multiple ways. Is there a gap, or is there a lack of results, or, what might it be?
Yeah, I know that in our relationship, it was probably maybe more than 2 years ago now, we had been having this friction point where I really love cooking, but I really hate figuring out and planning what it is that we're going to cook. So we were like, oh, this is a deficit gap. That's not Nath's strength in terms of forward projecting and planning, okay, well, if we're going to eat this, we need to shop for this, blah, blah, blah. That part we were both really hating. So, and it wasn't fun, and we weren't enjoying it anymore.
And it was taking up so much of our weekend as well to actually do that whole process. Thing. And it was,
So we outsourced it. We were like, bugger this, we're not doing it anymore. We signed up to a meal kit delivery service. And it's not to say that we use that all the time, but it definitely alleviated a pain point in our, I guess, relationship, because we were lacking a skill or we were fatigued from something that didn't come super organically to either of us.
And just to be able to get your cooking fix by having the meal kit.
Yeah, so I got to keep the part of the task that I love and enjoy, and that's my strength. I enjoy that, and I like adapting the meals that come. But yeah, the actual, difficult part, we outsourced.
Yeah, and see, the magic happened when you guys had that conversation about it. So you didn't sort of just sit there and let it fester and fester until it exploded.
Oh, no, we did.
Oh, okay.
And then it went, no.
You left out that part of the story.
Yeah. Well, it was just it got to this point where it was I cannot have this conversation every single day for forever. I'm not having, what do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? Oh, well, what have we got? I don't know. No, we got to a point where it was we just cannot continue with this pain point that we're both experiencing. We lack it. Let's outsource it.
Yeah. Sometimes, though, it can, you had the conversation, so if it blew up first, but you learn from that, right? And it could mean that, next time it occurs, you're like, okay, we don't want that to explode again, so let's have the conversation. Or it could be, oh, let's stop doing the meal kits for a while, let's save some money, or whatever it might be, or you just forget to order it a couple times. And then you fall back into that routine, and it's about that stopping and noticing and going, I'm feeling that yucky feeling that I was feeling before, and that frustration starting to build. Now we can have a conversation. Hey, I'm feeling like I was before this blows. We need to do something about it,
Yeah.
But I think it was really interesting, just with that example of the meal kits. It was interesting to see what other flow-on effects it had, just by trying something differently as well. So we realized that we hated going to the supermarket and doing that food shop, and that we were buying all sorts of stuff which we didn't actually need and never used. And so by going to the meal kit, we were saving money, we were saving time, we were saving energy. Like there was
no friction points.
Yeah, no friction points. There were so many different things just by, I guess, trying something differently, and by, I guess, outsourcing just that little piece. It just had a real big flow-on effect.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great example. I love it.
So what are some of the other things that you see when people lean into their strengths?
Yeah, so I talked at the beginning when we were talking about generally someone's natural talents or their strengths, it really gives them energy. So quite often you find if someone's really getting to leverage their natural talents or their strengths, they're going to be happier, they're going to be more energized, they're going to finish the day and go, yeah, I had a good day, I'm feeling really good. And that might be as simple as, I get a lot out of my day where I feel like I've helped people, and I'll finish my day and go, oh, I had some really great coaching sessions today, or ran a really great workshop today. I'm feeling really energized, right? Versus that really de-energized feeling where we're stuck doing things that we, don't want to do, whether it's vacuuming or whether it's going to the shops or meal planning or whatever it might be.
Yeah, budgeting, or there's, I guess, so many life admin pieces of being grown-up, adult relationship.
Yeah. So you touched on it before. There are strengths assessments out there to do. Like, I guess, what's the benefit of actually doing that, and what do most people get out of doing those sort of activities?
Yeah. So the really great thing I love about doing a strengths assessment is, and this might sound counterintuitive, but you read your report and you kind of go, okay, this didn't tell me I did anything I didn't know about myself. But what it does is it brings it to your awareness. I'll give you a really great example. So the strengths assessments that I recommend, it's called Gallup Strength Finder. It's the ones that I use with my business, and it's the ones that I've seen the most benefit from. It's got the most research behind it, so it's kind of the top-notch one to go for. And my number one strength or talent came out as what's called input. And input is all about collecting and archiving. And for some people, it's a physical thing. Some people it might be collecting coins or stamps or butterflies or whatever it might be. For me, it comes out in terms of collecting information. So I collect it, I archive it, I, use Evernote and I screenshot and I, bookmark things. And I always knew that about myself, but it wasn't until I did the strengths assessment that I went, oh, this is a unique strength. This is actually a strength. It's not just me hoarding. And once I sort of saw that in writing and I thought about it, I went, great, this is something that I can really use to my benefit. So, I'm constantly thinking about, I read an article and it's like, I want to save this, and who can this be beneficial for, and where can I pull from this? And I just get so much energy from that. But it wasn't until I saw it on paper that I went, oh, okay, this is useful. I can do something with this.
Yeah, I had a similar experience when I completed the strengths assessment. I've done the same one. I've done it with Gallup, and you go through and answer the, 50, 100 questions or so, really, try and listen to your gut. But my top one is activator, so which means that I'm really great at getting things started and I'm quite impatient. It's just like, okay, cool, let's just do it. Like, let's, probably a little bit, let's just cut, don't worry about double, triple measuring. Whereas Nath is really great at jumping in and executing
But once I've got a vision and once there's something there to do, I'm more than happy to do it, and I'll get it done, and
So we kind of I'll set up the beginning of the spreadsheet or the beginning of the itinerary or the beginning of reorganizing a cupboard, and then Nath can kind of swoop in and pick up where I lack in the finishing piece.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting point that you raised. So in terms of strengths, we talk about there's two sides to every coin. And with strengths, if we're applying our talents really productively, then we can get a really productive, useful outcome out of it. Like, for example, I can just get stuff started. If we've been, saying we should do this, it's like, yep, cool, let's just do it. Let's make it happen. And that probably happens without even thinking about it for you. On the flip side, though, if we overplay that talent, if we don't have awareness around it, it can lead to unproductive outcomes. So, for example, with activator, the upside is everything you just spoke about. The downside might be, ready fire instead of ready aim fire. And sometimes it looks like that starting before you're ready. So it's that awareness of the talent that makes you go, okay, I feel like my activator wants to get going here. I'm raring to go, but let me just stop and think, is this the right time to start? Should I start? Am I starting the right thing? If you can stop and have a little bit of self-awareness and catch yourself, it means that you can kind of reel in that activator. You can still get the benefit from it, but it just means that you're going into it with a little bit more self-awareness and a little bit more thought. Because otherwise what happens is you start and it's the wrong thing or the wrong time or the wrong direction or, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that helped me but in doing a really, bird's eye look at who I am and what I, excel at without too much, encouragement. But it definitely helped me put myself, using Activator as the example, it helped me put myself on a scale and go, okay, well, I'm quite an impatient person. Nathan's an incredibly patient person. So when that rubs up against each other, I have, a way of going, well, where am I really sitting on the scale? Is he actually being slow to act or am I being way too fast? And I can see it a bit more holistically because I have that self-awareness now.
Yeah, and that's the magic right there, right? Where you stop and think about it and you can go, I know I'm this way and I know my partner thinks this way. And, so I've got a similar example. So Christy, my wife, she is really high in a talent called discipline. And that means that she likes routine and structure, right? Whereas higher in my report comes adaptability, which is like, I like to go with the flow. So instantly you can see that there's going to be friction sometimes, right? And I'm not going to lie, it still bugs me about her, and I'm sure the adaptability still bugs her about me. But we have a language now. So sometimes she'll just go, it's my discipline, can you just let me do it? And I'm like, yep, cool, right? It still bugs me, but I get it, I understand it. So when you take the time to really understand, I like getting things started, I like to think about things, I'm patient, I'm impatient. If you know that, then it means you're not going, why is Nathan stopping me? Why is he slowing me down? This is so frustrating. It allows you to question and go, actually, am I jumping into this too quickly? Or do I need to get him to speed up? It's that stop and ask that question.
Yeah, that really nice ebb and flow. Yeah.
So if both people in a couple have done the strengths assessment, what benefits do you think there would be to that in a relationship?
Oh, it's just, like I said, it's not going to tell you anything you didn't know about yourself or your partner, but it's going to bring it to your awareness and it's going to open that conversation. So, the example of actually using the words, okay, I can feel my activator starting. The opposite of activator might be deliberative, which is about taking really serious care when making decisions, anticipating obstacles. If you look at activator and discipline, it'll be, activator and deliberative, it'll be, we need a TV, let's go, this one's fine, let's take it, versus deliberative, oh, I guess we need a new TV, let me research some places to go, don't want to buy the first one.
Definitely me.
Yeah, so you can see where that friction could lie, but if you can have that conversation, and it might be, Sammy, you might go, hey, we need a new TV, we're going to go next weekend, start preparing, get your deliberative prepared, do whatever research you need to, we're going next weekend.
Is the activator.
Yeah, right? So there's that beautiful language that can come into it when you bring it to your awareness.
Yeah, I really like that. Obviously, part of our ethos at Fuel Collective is, to love life and date forever. And date forever really talks to obviously dating your partner and having a really intentional and conscious relationship with them. But it's also about dating yourself and going through this process of really intimately and continuously getting to know yourself and dating yourself and giving yourself that love and care. And things like doing that that self audit or that skills assessment or that strength audit, and really exploring and going, oh wow, that I didn't know that about myself, or now I know that and I have a language to talk about, and I can lean into it and show up, and be proud of the things that I'm great at. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no worries. It's a great way to sum it up. It is really that you can apply it to yourself, you can apply it to other people, and it's that permission to stop and go, it's okay if I'm not enjoying this. And sometimes we try to really force ourselves into doing something because we think that we should do it or we should enjoy it. But it's okay to give yourself that permission to not. And if you've got that self-awareness, then it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, totally. So there's something that we sort of touched on there was obviously there's going to be different areas of our relationships where one person takes the lead and the other person sort of steps in to support that person, but they don't In our language, in our relationship, it's like, that's not my department, that's your department. There's obviously an element where we kind of have this yin and yang of stepping up to the plate and being the leader. For example, Nath has got a wizard Google sheet that forecasts that, our bills and like when things are coming and going, and really about the cash flow. And it's not that I have no awareness of it or that I'm not involved at all, but Nath definitely takes the lead. Like, that's his baby. I don't know how the formulas work. That's his thing. So we've got this kind of area where it's like, okay, if there's gifts or things that connect to our social network or, arranging, birthdays and social outings and that sort of thing, that's kind of my thing. Like, and I'll, make sure the calendar's up to date, make sure Nathan knows where we're going and when we're going, that sort of thing. So obviously there's times where we both need to show leadership skills. What are some of the traits as a leader that if we perfected it would have the most impact on our, I guess, personal relationships?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and that's a really good example. And when I think about leadership, it comes down to communication, vulnerability, trust, all things that are really important in a relationship, whether we're talking a professional relationship, a personal relationship, whether we're talking about taking the lead with our partner or taking the lead with our team at work. And, if a leader or a person in a relationship has a good foundation of trust, if they can learn how to productively communicate with each other, if they can learn how to be vulnerable with each other and go, I know you really want me to do this budgeting, but it's just not clicking in my head. Do you think that this is something you can take over because you're really good at it and it comes quite naturally to you? If you can have that vulnerability, then the relationship, the personal, professional, the leadership, the team, the relationship, it's going to be so positively impacted. So yeah, communication, trust, vulnerability, I'd say the biggest ones for me.
Yeah, and I think that goes against our nature, right? To be like, we want to go out into the world and protect ourselves from exposing those weaknesses or areas that we might lack. Like, I think it's in the reptile part of our brain that it's like, we protect ourselves. And obviously the things that are of risk or danger to us now look very different to when we first got this blueprint of our brain. But obviously that's a skill and that's a strength, or I'm not sure which one that falls into, but the ability to go, hey babe, I'm really struggling with this thing. I can't seem to get it, or I'm really struggling with the way that you're handling something and I need to understand it. Like, those are pretty vulnerable conversations to try and have, especially early on. Do you have any advice around how to do that?
Yeah, and you're right. They're really vulnerable conversations. I guess what I'd say is vulnerability is a practice. It's not something where one day you sort of go, tick, I can be vulnerable now, right? There's going to be some things that it's going to be easier to be really vulnerable, and there's going to be some things that are harder. And, in a relationship, whether you've been together for 2 months or 10 years, I think that there's always going to be things that are easier to say, and there's always going to be vulnerability looks uncomfortable. It's being naked. It's being open, and vulnerability comes with an area of risk. You could be shut down. You could be made fun of. You could be, all of those things. And I think that's why if you've got that really nice foundation of trust, and if you know that it's coming from a place of, hey, I'm not trying to upset you, but when you do this, it makes me feel like this, something like that. That's naked vulnerability, and it's uncomfortable. But, if you can have those conversations, and it might have to start with, hey, babe, this is really uncomfortable for me, but I'm going to be a bit vulnerable right now because I feel like I owe it to our relationship. Or this is really uncomfortable for me right now, but I know you're going to take this on how I intend it to be, So
yeah, that's a really nice pre-frame. Like, we're going into this conversation and I feel uncomfortable, but it's important to me. You're important to me. So we're going to lean into this uncomfortable awkwardness.
It's definitely a practice. And, on the flip side, if you need to bring something up, with your partner, Brené Brown uses, the sentence, the story inside my head is, right? And it's like your partner does something and it upsets you or it rubs you the wrong way. And you can go, the story inside my head is you said that to really upset me. And then your partner can go, that wasn't my intention. I was just really frustrated and I was just getting it out. So even if you have a nice sentence like, this is uncomfortable, but, or the story inside my head is, if you have that little trigger, your partner goes, okay, this person's, my partner's about to be vulnerable with me. this might be a bit of an uncomfortable conversation, but it's coming from the right spot. So it could be coming up with that sentence that's just you guys that can lead into those beautiful conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea and a really great thing for people to implement. So if there is one, I guess, top tip for people to implement around skills and strengths and to really help their daily lives, what do you reckon it would be?
Look, I know I've said it quite a few times, but I honestly think that the communication is that first one. Obviously you need that trust and that vulnerability, but I think if you can open up those conversations and it could be exploring what you do that bugs your partner and then go, okay, I've noticed when I do this really frustrates you. I'm doing this because X, Y, Z. And then the partner can go, oh, okay, I felt like you were just doing it to bug me or whatever it might be. So I honestly feel like communication is the point to start. And I know that sometimes with relationships, people saying, oh, you just have to communicate. It's not quite that simple, but it's just opening up that conversation. And it can be something that requires no vulnerability, as simple as, hey, I notice when you do this, you really get into the zone. Is that something you love doing? Would you say that's a strength of yours? That's a really nice way to ease into it. There's no discomfort with it because you're talking about someone's strength and you're talking about something that you've noticed in them that they're really good at. So it's a nice conversation to ease into.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I guess it's just going, hey, if you can lean into your strengths and I can lean into my strengths, we can identify those gaps and address them. And ultimately, as a whole, our team gets stronger and, more efficient, more productive, more fun to be in. And we both get to do the things that bring us joy. That's a pretty cool conversation to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't require a whole lot of discomfort.
Yeah. So Jess, we touched on two of our values at Fuel Collective, so to love life and to date forever. Our third one is to be the change. And what that means is about being the change for yourself and taking accountability for what you can change in your own life, but also to be the change that you want to see in the world. So to say thank you for joining us today, we're going to give 10 days of tuition to some girls in Cambodia, which unlocks a whole range of different things. We know that when girls are educated, the return on that is tenfold. It impacts their future children, it impacts their communities, it impacts their ability to create revenue and I guess sustain their lives and their communities around them. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us this morning.
Thank you. That's wonderful. That's great. And thanks for having me.
No worries. So if people have loved what they've heard you talking about this morning and want to connect with you or want to learn some more, how should they do that?
Yeah, so if you go to humantribe.com.au, that's my website. You can have a look at what I do in terms of my work with workplaces. There's also a Connect With Us button. Otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn as well, Jess Weiss. So yeah, jump on, please do connect with me. And even if it's just to say, hey, I heard the podcast and my partner and I did this, those stories, they make me extremely happy. So please do reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Jess.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.